Hey there, welcome to Black Gumbo Southern Gardening. I've got a spring and summer garden bed full of weeds that we need to clear today. And so I'm going to clear the bed and I'm going to get my final harvest in. I'm going to talk about the pros and cons of flame weeding. They're little, but I've got some friends that love eggplant, so we'll harvest this guy before starting to take him down. It's just that time. This right here is Bermuda grass creeping in. I don't like to see that. I have this Carmen pepper, which is putting on some fruits. I'll harvest these. That one's a little too far gone. Sun scald. And so yeah, they're a little bit small. They're supposed to be much larger than this, but that's what you get late in the season. Smaller peppers. Right here we got a jalapeno that's loaded with peppers. And I need to harvest those and do something with these jalapenos, but you can see they're smaller than they ought to be. This is a Jedi hybrid jalapeno, and they should be 3 inches long, but late in the season, peppers are just smaller. And it's time for these to go because I need this bed. So yeah, one final harvest, and we'll pull these guys up too. You can see the state of what was my tomato bed and then became my long beans bed. It's got all kinds of weeds in it, mostly this nutsedge, and we'll burn that down. It'll come back, we'll burn it down again, and hopefully that will solve the problem. There's some long beans that come up voluntarily. My sweet potatoes over here are still flowering. That means they're not quite ready to start putting tubers down. I did dig up a few of them over there when I was clearing some weeds. They were very small. Yeah, so these are not ready yet, and I think I'm just going to leave them here until later in the fall, and we'll clear them out as we harvest, and we'll plug in other fall crops here that will make it through the winter, things that can tolerate getting started a little bit later. That's gonna keep me from being able to flame weed this area, but I can flame weed down there where the cowpeas were. You can see some cowpeas still coming up. Taking out all my T-posts that were structure for various trellises throughout the spring and summer, and yeah, we'll haul those away and bring out the flame weeder. Okay, so the gardens are clear of everything except sweet potatoes now, and it's now time to pick up all the posts, the T-posts, get them out of the way, and we're going to flame weed, do a first pass of flame weeding, and that'll knock all the foliage out, but the roots down below, they'll still be there, and they'll start shooting up new weeds pretty quick. But what we'll do then, after we do our flame weeding, I'm probably going to come and break up the soil, loosen it up, maybe turn the top 6 inches or maybe 8 inches, and we'll flame weed again. And what that will do is help to destroy some of the roots that are in there of all those weeds. Beds are cleared. I'm going to give it another day or two and let the weeds show up that are still alive down in there. I'll flame weed it again, and then we will move on. Okay, it's one day after I flame weeded, and you can see here that all in my garden, the nutsedge is the one that grows an inch a day, and these nutsedges are showing themselves with that much growth. So I can see all these little nutsedges popping up. And the reason that they do that is you just burn down the foliage, but their roots go down 6 inches and they're rhizomes, and it's a network, and it's really hard to get that nutsedge out. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to turn the earth in this area, and I'm gonna everywhere I see nutsedge, I'm going to turn the earth a little bit and expose some of those root networks, and then we'll flame weed again, and hopefully that'll minimize this stuff. It doesn't grow well in the winter anyway, so it's not a big concern for me for my fall and winter crops, but it will come back next summer with a vengeance. All this stuff in here needs to be eradicated as best I can. So I'm going to turn it again, and we're going to flame weed all the areas that have nutsedge. There we go. We'll give some time for all the earthworms to get back down into the ground. They're generally not affected by flame weeding. Flame weeding just heats up the top ½ inch to inch of soil, and the worms that are close by generally have a channel by which they can escape quite quickly. So you can see what we're dealing with here. We have these nutsedge roots and runners and rhizomes, and this is an exceptional example of what they do. They run underground, they send up these shoots that are sharp, they can punch through cardboard and weed cloth. So what I want to do is just expose a lot of this to the surface where we can come back and flame weed them. So I'm going to go through and probably turn this whole bed, and well, you've seen how to flame weed, so we're going to do some more. Here's what we want to see. We want to see all this nutsedge on the surface where we can come and burn it up. There are other kinds of roots in here, but it won't hurt us to come in and fry this ground again. All right, so I'm taking a little break. I want to talk about flame weeding, the pros and cons. When you flame weed, all you have to do is pass the flame over the plants for just a second or two. You don't have to burn them up. You don't have to turn them to char. I do like to turn them to char, just for the aesthetics and for the added benefit of putting ash into the soil. It's about the only time I put ash into my soil, and it's not a whole lot of material, so it's not going to affect the pH one way or another too badly. But what the flame does is it bursts the cell walls in the foliage of the plant, and in this whatever exposed portion of the plant the flame hits, it bursts the cell walls and causes the plant to die. And so I went through the path of my garden with the flame weeder and just kind of walked it back and forth over there just to knock down the grass that was growing there and stunt it a little bit. It won't grow much in the winter, and we won't have to mow it, so flame weeding is a good way to kind of stunt it and get a head start on that. The problem with flame weeding is it does not reach down into the roots and burn up the whole plant. If you have a vigorous plant that grows from underground network of rhizomes or runners or roots that are very deep, and tubiferous roots that are, tubers and things, you're not going to kill those plants with flame weeding. They'll come right back up, as you just saw in my garden with all the nutsedge. So what we're going to do is, like I showed you in the video, we've turned the soil to expose a lot of that network of roots down there, and you saw there's a lot of it in there, and we're not going to get it all, but by passing the flame over that turned earth again, will significantly reduce the nutsedge and its ability to come back. So that's a good thing. That's a pro. But the con is, if you don't do that step, you're just going to have your weeds popping right back up very quickly in your garden. And so flame weeding has the benefit of knocking everything down. You get a good view of your garden. It starts to look like it starts to look like your garden again, but it doesn't kill deeply. Give your kids a flamethrower and let them have some fun. You can see how sweeping the flame down my path back and forth yesterday knocked back the grass. Well, the grass is still alive in the roots, but it's getting close to that time of the year where it's not going to want to grow too vigorously. But it's nice just to have a clear path here. All right, so now we have flame weeded and everything is ready to be raked down. The garden smoothed out, some amendments added, and yeah, well, I was raking and this happened. I busted my rake, so I need to get a new rake. But that's what we'll do to prepare the bed. Other than amendments and raking and smoothing, we're ready to plant. I'll probably flame weed once more. I gotta refill my tank, it's empty now. But it's looking like a garden again. Except for that mess over there with sweet potatoes. What do you say, Phoebe? We ready for fall? So there we have it. Our garden is ready for planting for our fall crops. And hey, I have a guest coming from South Carolina, possibly next week. And she's going to be somebody that some of you probably already know. And we're going to talk about gardening together. So look forward to that. We're also going to be planting our fall crops here. I've got my cabbages and broccolis already started indoors. Plant those out in a few weeks. Going to sow directly in the garden a lot of fall crops. So stay with us. Subscribe to our channel if you haven't already. Thank you for watching. We'll talk to you next time. Bye-bye.